Welcome to today's podcast on hostile architecture. I welcome also Mohammad and Filip from Destriparchitects to today's podcast. The podcast is part of a broader project called Project B, which is organized here at VUB.
Et c'est Bruxelles, le monde appelle.
So we are Destriparchitects, and we studied in St. Lucas like 10 years ago in Brussels, the architecture studies. And after that, we started a little small architecture practice, working on this kind of typical Brussels projects, but we're also engaged with a lot of competitions and public projects. But that was not very satisfying for us, and we started like a side project called the stripping architecture, where actually we are more active on the social medias, on YouTube, Instagram, talking about the cities, namely Brussels. And actually lately we actually published a book for Brussels and for this kind of topics.
So we run like nowadays a stripping architecture platform. It's mainly like on social media, YouTube, Instagram. Our main interest or job is to go down the street, strip the city up to like the hidden points. So like we tried like our best to spot the neglected things, the defaults in the city. Especially we focus on the public space, and that's why it's called stripping architecture. And one of our hot topics always comes on gentrification, of course. Hostile architecture is the cherry on the top, like kind of. And the list goes on and on, of course.
And the name stripping architecture actually means that we're tackling this kind of debates that there is no right or wrong. You have to strip the things in different layers and explore from different perspectives to see what's solid argument or what is good or not.
Maybe as a further means of introduction, what do you do on a daily basis, basically, and how is this topic linked to the broader topic of hostile architecture?
So on daily basis, we have, like, as we mentioned, the practice of architecture, like part-time projects, competitions, classical architecture. On the other side, like we have also the stripping architecture, which is actually a daily practice in the city, within the hour works or after. So during our walks, like going here and there, even visiting. So it's not about like we devote 8 hours per day for stripping architecture. It really can come some ideas or observations during night, or if you are somewhere else. So, and again, it's not like stick to Brussels. We try to expand it around Belgium. And during the like daily walk, let's say, in the city and observation, we spotted a big chunk of hostile architecture in Brussels. That's why we try to make more content about it. And
yes, to add on this, it's good to say that, for example, how you announced us as the expertise in hostile architecture. I challenge everyone who listens this to find the literature about hostile architecture, books and channels or documentary about it. There are some YouTube videos. And that's the thing, like, you don't have to be especially dedicated to this subject. The point, what we're doing is that really to kind of get under your skin the feeling that there is around you uncomfortable environments, especially public spaces, to be used. And since we are stripping architecture, the idea is to strip this. We're never satisfied with the first surfaced information. We want to dig in why and how this happens. And if you start a little bit digging more, you'll see that it comes in different forms and shapes for different kind of people.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're going to talk about today as well. We did some research in preparation of this podcast, and we'll talk about the different groups that will be affected later. But perhaps it's good to start off by explaining maybe what the concept, the overall idea of hostile architecture actually is, or what it entails.
Yes, so really we want to stress attention to this, that there is no specific definition about this. Same as there is no one definition about architecture, same as there is no one definition about gentrification. And this is phenomena, and you can see it in different ways. That's very important. The terminology is really important. How we can put it in some basic frames, this hostile architecture is just the term, it's like maybe to be catchy, but it can be uncomfortable. It's a control of space. power of space, dictating how one space to be used in a silent and hidden way. It goes together with other kind of processes in the city. We can talk about that later. So in a sense, it looks naive. It looks like it's just excluding people, but in the backstage, it has broader long-term mission, kind of say. So maybe this is kind of a good way to say it, because if we go through what means hostile architecture and what kind of forms you can find it, it's like really a long debate. So
Yeah, just to elaborate on this, hostile architecture also, it's not like an architectural style. So it's not Art Nouveau or modern architecture. It's really, from our humble observations and analysis so far, we see like we can categorize them in two main topics, like in hostile architecture intervention. It can be post-intervention for a place or a square or a corner that the owner of the government wants to kind of change the dynamics and the social dynamics around this spot. And the second, it can be done we don't want to say without thinking about it. It's like, for example, a new brand project can have hostile architecture within it, but is it like for the reason of cheap, like there is no budget, or they don't think about inclusivity, or they really mean that, okay, we want to exclude this kind of people. So it's not like it's a phenomenon. That's maybe a very good point to put it, and it's very fluid topic so far. Mm-hmm. And there is too little literature about it, and we are struggling kind of to try to explain it in a very subjective way. Not about it has feelings, because you don't need to be an architect to spot the hostile architecture. That's very important also.
This was very good. I just want to add, we're so long together with Mohammad, and now he just inspired me and challenged me. We together to kind of, I would be careful with categorizing the hostile architecture, but it's a good exercise, but that we should probably do. I mean, you can, if you start categorizing it, probably there will be a weird branch of tree branch that that's a good exercise.
And that can add to the literature and the further research.
Yes, that's why we don't have a structure of how that one is divided and split, and it's a good thing to be done, and probably we'll do that soon.
Maybe a topic for further research.
Unless it's done by someone, but appoint it to us, please.
Okay. And just to maybe visualize it more for the listeners, are there any well-known examples in general or here around Brussels of hostile architecture?
Well, because lately we did a video about this, I would go with South Station, Z-Station, Gare du Midi, where really that place has a lot of niches. The architecture has a lot of corners and spots, and it has been designed in a very aggressive way in the 60s. And there is no major entrance, there is no good infrastructure around it, and all the niches, maybe around 5, 6, 7, I will even go maybe more, they're not blocked off, so people cannot gather there. And I know the controversies about this, but also hostile architecture, very important to say, it can come, so all the niches there are blocked and you cannot gather in these corners, but hostile architecture can also occur in a way that if you don't do anything. For example, keep in mind the Roger, the square Place Roger. There is nothing in front of this Belfius bank. I think it's Belfius, the skyscraper. There is nothing there. It's windy. There is no bench. There is just hard surface, and that's hostile architecture. That's in its DNA, without any bench. That's a hostile architecture.
And that's an interesting point to make, that it doesn't have to be like a physical object or something locked off. Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. And there is many of these. I can also tell you for the Park Duden. Now they installed some benches, but there was no benches. There is no covered spaces. There is no. It's just green grass. And who can sit on the green grass? I challenge you to think.
Yeah.
so again, it can go, in a big scale, this kind of big intervention with a very subtle design that it meant to be like this. We don't know, because we want to dive into hostile architecture architects or urban planners or even politicians to ask, do you really think about this, or it comes by coincidence because you target certain groups, commuters like the back to the South Station, and we want it clean, proper. Train comes in, out, people jump with suitcases. There is one also issue in cities that brings us to hostile architecture. Most of our cities are designed to the group of people between 20, let's say, and 50 or 60, the productive people who bring capital, and or who are less and more, they are excluded. And there brings us to, that's by itself hostile architecture. So any project takes in consideration that the infrastructure, the new interventions should reach the future, or like what those people, the productive layer of our society, should be happy and satisfied. And the rest we will see. And I don't know if it's clear, but this is kind of also another level of all kind of interventions that we see in the city. It should bring money back, like to the city, by satisfying the capital who produce the the workforces. Let's say.
Facilitate for them, and then a lot of other people fall out of that branch between 20 and 60 and who are not working. Exactly. Very good point to make. And those, like the groups that we'll be talking about later in the podcast, also fall out of that group, as you mentioned. Exactly. Maybe looking at the broader topic of public space, if we look at public space, how could we define it, and what role has hostile architecture to play within the public space?
So Mohammed's point was very good introduction about this question, and it came sporadical and organic. And maybe to make it even more clear, this public space is designed for the consumerist, and that's the production, for those who can consume. And that's why if you go by the stations, there's a public spaces. These are big public spaces. Again, what is public space? It's an important question. And this public space is designed for, it all goes to those who can just spend some money and consume. And this tool, hostile architecture, is used in the public space to kind of filter, conduct people who can afford and who can buy, and the business can grow. And this comes the problematic, the question: if you have a very nice latte on the square in front of the train station, you don't want someone to be sleeping in front of you. I'm putting this in big quotation marks, and that people will care to make. I mean, those who invest will make sure so that place is nice and satisfiable for the consumer. And this is the broader in general terms. And then this comes to other kind of, I think I answered the question. I think I was on the line of the question, right?
Because public space, of course, it's like a place where it's open for everyone. It's like it works well in dense cities, but if you design it in a way that you exclude, again, we can't avoid actually the excluded groups of people. But for example, you design a very nice square with cafes, but you don't, and it's elevated, imagine, with staircases. So you already excluded, forget about homeless and skaters. No, like people with strollers, handicap, old people. So why? Because you want to have a nice square. It's public, it's open for everybody, but we want people to hang out here, chill, drink, and it can go really endless. But this is the way. Of course, it's impossible. Like some people say, but it's impossible to move to design a 100% inclusive public space. I think our answer is wrong. No, it is possible. You just do it, and it's not about money. It's about just to think about the minorities of people who, you never saw them in the squares. That's why you don't take them in consideration, because in your head, and you see it in the renders. There was this scandal a couple of years ago in Bruce, I think, why all renders have middle-class white professionals. And now they try to stick some colors and allochtone, but it doesn't work. Like in renders, it's something, because we are not used to see inclusive public space. And that's why I think we keep designing kind of the same, because in the head of politicians or designers, architects or whatever, no harm feelings, you're not used to see, families hanging out with the suitcase bankers in a square like Flagey, for example. And that's I think the issue is, or if you are like living outside, this is again designing top down. That's another issue. But in Brussels, we'll be more optimistic. There are a lot of initiatives that kind of neighborhood based, who try to mobilize the locals to kind of push some of the local identity and character of the neighborhood within the public space.
Yeah. Okay, very clear. And if we think about like more in trends, can we place the broader phenomenon, as you said, of hostile architecture in a certain trend? And is that a more recent development, maybe, or has it been around for example, a longer period of time?
Well, I mean, again, we haven't read well when it originated. I mean, there could be some smart person who maybe note this down, but I don't know this, to be honest, when it started. But it definitely, what we see it again, the C word, the capitalism, it's not something anti-capitalism here. The podcast is about something else, but it emerges from that. When you see the hostile architecture, it emerges from the disbalance between included and not included, financially powerful and financially vulnerable people. It comes. I mean, the moment you see spikes and the moment you see something, either those spikes were intentionally placed so they can make some certain kind of separation, either to protect the capital, or this kind of hostile architecture came as a result by the fact that some person is just not feeling comfortable, doesn't care about anything else, and this is the first thing to do it. Or governments are installing it to make it a bit clear, to make it a bit more safe, the space. And here comes the thing that sometimes is a signal for gentrification. Sometimes it's an indicator for developers. This is the next good spot to give our invest our capital or start to develop it, for example. And investors and developers are looking for this kind of signals. They look who cycles, because when you invest, you have to be sure. And we understand that. You want no risks. And you wait for this kind of signals. And once you see something's happening somewhere, that's a good sign that, here there is something going on. And then they wait. They're like a predator. Honestly, like they wait until they see if this is going to evolve in a good. And that's what happens in South Station now. They're testing these things. They see how people will behave. And there is a new extension that is like planned to go 30 floors on top of the South Station, and it's a very bad, very conserved solution that will not include and not solve any problem there. But they're checking, poking, seeing how things will go, and so definitely it goes with the investments, capitals, gentrification. Not balance economy and so on. So
you asked about the history of the beginning of it. We think it's not ancient. Like maybe it's like around kings or like palaces to kick out some sort of I don't know, groups. But you can see it as a tool that like emerged after, I think, within like the Industrial Revolution and onward, and it get boosted in capitalist like era. And I think hostile architecture here can help a lot not to solve an issue. You just export it. You say, there is an issue in this square or in this building or whatever. I'm not going to invest in social capital. No, just do these interventions. They will be kicked somewhere else, exported. Yeah, of course, they will go to another block or another city or another village. So, like, also hostile architecture, that's why it's again vague like a fish. You can't catch it. I don't know if they meant to do it like this, like to keep it a vague topic, because people can divide around hostile architecture, especially if it comes from private interventions by governments or like cities. And there it's brutal, like it should not happen. If there is an issue, you have to tackle it and handle it. When it happens on a private level also, that's a very also controversial. It's my building, it's my corner. I want to add these elements because I don't want people to hang around. So democracy comes in and freedom. So it is like still in a very cloudy, vague. But I think with the increasing awareness and talking about the issue more and kind of explain to people what you are doing is just you are exporting the problem by doing these hostile architectural interventions, and it will continue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe to further elaborate on that, on exporting the problem and more or less like ignoring it to a certain extent as well. How do policymakers, like in real life, justify the use of hostile architecture? Of course, it's not very well known. That will be one part, so it's easy for them to pull it off in a way. But how do they actually justify that?
So recently we collaborated with a very good architect and public space thinker, Floor van Ditshuizen, shout out to her. And she is like based in Rotterdam. She's like very engaged about making the, diminishing and erasing the hostile architecture. And she says public governments have responsibility to make public spaces safe. And that's their major agenda. And she says, yes, I agree with this. But public space should be safe about everyone. So if you make something safe, if you make the public space safe, if you want to make it for everyone. And that takes more thinking than just installing these stupid things around or not doing anything. And I think this explains a lot in a simple sentence. We all want safe public space. And the thing where to start from is to kind of understand that it belongs to everyone, this space. And okay, the sentence is simple, it belongs to everyone. We can elaborate more what this means, public space, but we have to keep this in mind.
Yeah, I think for politicians, and it's very complex because if it's in the public space itself, I think they try to subcontract in a way, or if the problem is located on the border between public and private, like the case of Rotterdam, we saw a couple of insane cases where you have an arcade which goes underneath the private building, but it's public. But there they managed to get a permit to install some sort of steel sheets on the floor with kind of obstacles so skaters can come in. And first of all, there was a building permit for sure. And the city hall accepted this intervention. Like, based on what? It's like artistic. It looks like artwork. What? So I think the government also plays with private, because the capital, private developers to do more to kind of carry on these kind of interventions, because if they do it alone, they will be really cornered, and it's easy to counterattack and criticize. But if it comes from like private public, we would say it like this: PPP, private public projects or interventions for hostile architecture, and then it gets like in a gray zone again. And who to blame? The municipality. It's not us. The like here you have a recent case, the ING bank in the Tron. Like they got the permit to install new artwork, and with all respect, why? Because it was bombarded with skaters and people hanging around after working hours. So what's the problem? Like, everyone in the office is off home, and this is for the municipalities. We are branding our city. We will not say to the bank not to pump like a couple of millions here to make it more artistic. And at the same time, we hit like two birds with one stone. And there like you get like less hassle and like responsibility on the municipalities or government.
A good example to illustrate this quickly was when they're now renovating Albert, the train station, and the renders about the renovation are all benches without separation bars. So the municipality, they thought this is public money, half something is by the public transport, and they knew that this will have to be inclusive. And we were there and I was like, wow, they really installed the benches, very nice, fluid, something nice, open, you can lay, children can come, and this is hostel. You have people coming with bags, people coming with strollers, with different kind of tools, workers using this. Now they installed the bars. Like 4 weeks after, they couldn't make it longer. Probably one person was sleeping on it. And they wanted to, and I know exactly who person is this and what happened after that. But by putting those bars, those benches are unsittable now. They're sittable for, you can sit if you're cool, you drink beer, you're alone, individual, you cannot gather with a group there. And it's like nice squarish space in the metro. And you have all these nice elevators, escalators, 2 nice elevators actually go. And then you come here, you have gates and you have this. And who can sit on it? Me, you, without equipment and so on. So there you go. There was, I think, very simply said, like, no, here we don't want people sleeping. And I'm sure they were thinking very nicely about the benches because these are contractors. There is like tender finals about this. There is, everything should go public. And they installed this. And what is funny because on those benches, there were no holes for the bars. and usually you have to produce it with the holes. They came after that, they drill some holes, they put the bars, but yeah, now I think there is like 2 longitudinal benches. One is with the bars, the other one they took it out, which I can kind of, okay, fine, give options for different kind of, at least.
Solution,
Yeah.
find somewhere in the middle, but still. And thinking about an imaginative world that is truly inclusive, are there any principles in design that should be central or that should always be taken into account to you?
Yeah, for this inclusivity and public space, it's quite well developed, I would say. And there is huge research about it, but you need, again, a political will and capital to do it. Yeah, basic principles. I would say, yeah, just go to the ancient, villages or squares, how they were functioning. Yeah, accessibility is quite important. Security and feeling of safety for the users. And, yeah, try to think about all the possible categories of people who might use the public space, or just do more effort or look for good examples, because we see it quite often. Accessibility is a big issue, and of course at certain hours it's exclusive for like light and security, and for example also weather wise, like you don't have protection, so you will have just gangsters hanging out, and the rest, no, you're not allowed because it's not protected. So like public facilities like toilets, for example, in public space, you don't go to such places because, people with different sickness, kids, older people, and they're already excluding people without even very, very basic stuff. So you prefer to go to park and you do it Belgian way, pee on a tree, like with a kid, which is, kind of tolerated in a way. But if you do it in a plain public space, you will be looked around, especially if you have cafes around. So I would say here, like with inclusivity, we should go in details and really kind of unpack category per category and try to cover up, because great, you have good architects and urban planners who design very nice public spaces with light mobility, no cars, lights, very fancy trees, but we never go in details and to kind of cover all the inclusivity. And the second thing, which we have to be more honest about it, architects and urban planners, there is no harm of going back to your project after 5 years, check what's going on. And if there is a failure or a weak point, do an intervention. Just keep it an open project. Don't be a shy, or defend it no, it should be like this.
Well, I mean, that's very good point. That's the thing, we have to take designers, whatever they are, and we know this should be inclusive, but not many people have time to be engaged with the project, but we have to invite people to design it together, to make more participative designs. And that participative design doesn't have to come in the first moment you design it. As Mohammad says, make some basic structure, and designers should learn how to be. That's why we're on our Instagram and just be humble and honest. If they sound that this sucks, you say oh my God, it really sucks. Take your pride down, stick it under the table, and do something about it. Second thing is that cities are dynamic entities. Of course, we cannot give solution. We cannot make the city now inclusive for everyone. But accept these things, talk about them. Another thing, there is no in-depth research is being done for places that are very problematic. Like, for example, the South Station. They come with this one-thought solution again, 300 years ago, and they're imposing this thing. And they say, when we do sometimes critique about it, and they say, okay, give us a proposal. I can give a proposal. Thousands we can give. But really, I don't want like that. We have to do research. You know how much that research will cost? Not even 20% from that bench. Someone to sit down. And also I have to add this. We're not taught how to act with people. And I think this is one of the crucial problems, how psychologically to communicate with people. We install hostel architecture so we can move some people away. So there is no strange interactions between those who are, I will use this, not normal, the everyday person, very nice dress, goes to the work, satisfies the tax payments and stuff, and those who are on the streets, let's say now homeless, all right. And we do this so we can make separation from them. Why? Because, first of all, if you find yourself close to this kind of people, we are not taught how to act with them or date with us. We don't talk to them. There is no people that will sit down and maybe talk to them in another language. Maybe ask them for a cigarette. Maybe if they are something making public space disturbance, calm down a little bit. What's going on? Or how to approach. I don't know how to approach. I don't know. We are thinking how to come when you're sometimes walking on these narrow staircases and someone is shooting drugs and you're pacing there. What you're going to do? You run, you escape. That's your fight, or you try to save yourself. instead of how to act there. Should be calm? Should I say something? Should I just... We're not thought about how to be socially to tackle these things. And this is something that should be done. And I say this in Karl West. I witnessed there was a person making some drama, and it was a homeless person. And people came from the municipality. They really like asked him out very calmly. Like they invited him for a cigarette, and that's why I say this. He light up a cigarette, they took him a coffee, and this calmed down without this too much RoboCop police coming and you here, you should. But the situation was under control. And I've seen this once 3 years ago, never seen it again. So we can find this. I mean, there are already municipal workers just hanging around in the municipalities of Brussels. They can be trained for this, and we can all learn from this, you know, and how to be a little bit more. And Brussels is already chill. I have to see this. Like comparing the other cities around, it's pretty. And this can be also a very good way to kind of learn and to make it better, the space. But you cannot solve it. But it's hostile architecture feeds itself of ignoring. Yeah. And more you ignore, more hostile. They even design even better hostile architecture, even fancier, and then in that way the tendering file become more affordable. And then people don't have to install it; they just have to click like on eBay. Up, you have a new bench with separations. It's even more convenient to apply.
There was this scandal about, I don't know, fact check, I don't know, we have to check about it, the North Station benches. And there was this scandal that a friend of the Minister of Mobility has this, like, I don't know, products, so lobby works. And then you see them all over Belgium, actually. It's not just North Station, if you notice, in different stations, which kind of confirm this theory of, making money. Oh, this is all... And this is scary. If this is true, this is really, wow.
Yeah, where is the border? When it's going to stop? For example, if they say like it's one bench, but tomorrow it takes like a snowball effect and it starts to be normalized. We'll just install. And then in Rotterdam, we saw this normalization of that. Like it's everywhere. It's like, and it comes in, they have these boxes that are making the sound, high-pitched sound, which are illegal, by the way, in the Netherlands. That's what we were told. So people cannot hang out there.
Yeah, that's
only one part.
Pretty bad.
Is more.
Yeah.
There is more.
Yeah. Let's talk about the different groups that are affected in general, or at least some of them. So in the process of doing some research for this podcast, we realized that talking about hostile architecture, it affects a lot of people, more than we can go over in this podcast. Therefore, we decided to focus on skaters, homeless people, and people with reduced mobility. However, later we'll go on to some other groups. But firstly, let's talk skaters maybe. They're a group, of course, who spend a lot of time in the streets. They use it as a means for creative expression. And although there's sometimes skate parks, as for example here being developed in the city, it's not the same. You always want to go back into the street because it brings something different. Some argue, therefore, that they damage the public space and that they're not very welcome. Is it fair that the public space is made inaccessible to them through modifications, for example, at ING?
Yeah, well, let's jump to the groups because it's inevitable. Skaters, I think, okay, I don't skate, I never skate, but I think they kind of animate the city in a way. They are not wild. I don't know. Okay, noise-wise, maybe a little bit chick, but that's what, back to the ING case, the Tron Square. They do start their activities, summertime for sure, after 4, offices are off. Why not? There is a huge debate in Brussels since 10 years about the North Quarter, how to revive this district because it's an office district and night is becoming spooky. And you have thrown one building standing office. Okay, a lot of houses around. It is getting animated at night and you still refuse it. Now it takes us to the question is the reaction of the ING administration. Is it something about prestigious, close to the king? So why do you have to kick out damaging? No, they don't damage. Even if they damage, the money you will pump for post-intervention hostile architecture, on 20, 30 years, you will be fixing what they damage. If they damage, of course, the corners of these marble and, nice stuff. But I think it's more about these prestigious places or buildings should stay very nice and untouchable and, kind of for tourists. And that's it. And this is really an old way of thinking. It doesn't work. It kills the city energy because they do build skate parks. And yeah, Ali, jump there. No, you don't ship them. This, like, if you're not a skater, you choose your spot. You don't like, even what you design, they might, they don't like it. Like, it's just you put them in a cage. And instead of building a skate park, no, sit with the skaters, with the owner of buildings, whatever, and come up with a nice pioneer projects. Can we integrate both activities without harming each other and respect? And it's possible, but it needs political will, again, a little bit of time and energy, and it works. Like,
that's again. So that's the thing of, again, we have to understand that these skaters are subculture, and we have to understand that if we complain why children are not doing anything, or youngsters, or even now people who skate, it's good to be outside in their animated spaces. They're actually very good social control. But the major thing why again they're being kicked out, again we have problem of dictation of power. And I have to keep coming back to this, because if we start talking who harms the city more, if we put this in perspective of that, like, I'll tell you many others who are harming it and they're not being punished in any kind of way. And this is really abusive. Again, this is like, this is like kicking you by the butt, like, you skate here, go, because they're uncapital group, they're not spending, they're okay, but I mean, they're like, they're not rich people. I mean, okay, there are maybe hipsters who are like rich and skating, but mostly it's about culture, it's mostly about they're there to skate. So this is, again, why you punish them, like, why you come and again, if they're too loud, and I've seen this in other places, what Mohammed said, like, go out there, talk with them. They might be loud, we don't say no, there might be something bothering you for sure, but why it has to be these needles and spikes? Come out there, talk, hey, look, nice, here is like residential space. Here sometimes people have to, the working class in these residential spaces, now I'm amplifying the exaggerating, they have to sleep nighttime, or like there is families. Understand them. Again, we come to this understanding, have communication, dialogue. If you come out and you say it once, twice, 3 times, you say, these kids or who are skating, they will understand this. But don't just, because again, if you just put this hostile architecture, they will become even more provoked, and tomorrow they will even grind on it even more. I mean, that's how you don't have the understanding. And again, you will have that, but the proportion shouldn't be high. And today what we see, sometimes skaters are a very good branding technique for big corporations, because when ING were doing something, on front of it having these skaters was like, look, we are now inclusive, we are like opening the space. But yes, I mean, evolve some economy around them, or why you have to just kick them out? So yeah, that's about the skaters. We can talk more about the homeless, like to shorten it down. Something I really want to stress attention to, like, there is 2 kind of approaches to the hostile architecture and homeless people. When you see those homeless, some of those homeless are just like sitting on the public space or sleeping. Some of them are, being loud and they're drinking alcohol, I don't know what. And there is 2 approaches. Some people often tend to see them as, their DNA is like this. They are biologically evolved. We have to understand that this can happen to you, and that this happens because of different conditions and situations of our lives and cities. If you want me to start, I can tell you what we said, spiral debt crisis. That's like happens a lot with the debt, people who are not keeping up, abusive drug, but using a lot of pills and stuff where you have like pain after some war or after some wound or something. They will keep using this to tone down their. Then there's anxiety, there is like panic, there's stress, there can be some loss of family or emotional stress. This can lead them to these places, and we have to understand see the homeless people as iceberg, this classical comparison metaphor, and under the iceberg it's all the load they're bearing with them that made them this, and it can happen to you. So if we can learn something from the individualism, we have to connect it with collectivism, that it can happen to you, and it happens because we did this. Yeah. Every homeless we see it's our reflection.
It's broader societal
exactly.
problems,
it's
basically.
Not that they've been born homeless.
Yeah.
Everyone is born homeless on the end of the day, but it's not that they've been predetermined to have destiny to be homeless. And that's how they think of them. And that's how I'm afraid the public institutions are thinking of this like this. I have this feeling sometimes. And this has to be explained to people. And I understand people are sometimes they're afraid to see them like drinking and stuff, but we have to explain this and how we can maneuver.
Yeah, it's
this
definitely necessary because we're
Yeah.
like coming into this more and more individualized society. It's not getting better.
But we can learn from it something.
But it can still change.
Yes,
But then
of
indeed it starts with
Yes.
awareness and projects, definitely.
Just to elaborate on homeless concept, as a concept, to be honest, it was new for me when I I came to Belgium like 10 years ago or so, or more, a little bit more. I come from Palestine. We don't have homeless. It's not just I'm bragging, no. And the fact that I started to hear homeless, I didn't get it. Like, what? Someone sleeping in the street? Then you go out, especially nighttime and winter, man. How come those people are like sitting? It took me still, I think, more than 10 years. I can't process it. And that brings us again to the society. It's a production of a society. It's very simple to tackle. But again, they are one of the most, like, unfortunately, targeted group by hostile architecture.
So, circling back to our previous discussion on public space, we think public space can also be unintentionally designed to be hostile. For example, for people with reduced mobility. Why is this third group of people with reduced mobility also not always taken into account?
Let's be honest now on the table. There was like recently we were busy with a competition somewhere around Brussels. There is a certain budget. It's very ridiculous, huh? And the place, we don't want to mention exactly where, it's surrounded by staircases. And there is an access from like the upper side straight to the street, fine. But the bottom one is like facing a big square. And it's bombarded with stairs. And one of the logical things, hey guys, let's install a ramp here. Oh, sorry, the budget does not allow us. So this is always what you get. I think architects and urban planners and politicians are smart enough to recognize this issue very quickly. It should be actually one of the first interventions in this project. You know what? Before like starting renovation, put the accessibility for PMR, like the people with reduced mobility. It's all about budget. Are we going to spend like a couple of hundred of thousands of euros on something that will be used once a week? This is the answer you get always, which is frustrating. Like it's really shocking, honestly. And yeah, you have to compromise your project. And that takes us again to ethics in architecture. Like there was this debate with a couple of years ago in SIVA about what architects can say, why they don't say no to some sort of projects. For example, the projects who are not inclusive for everyone, especially people with reduced mobility, should be refused, should not be designed with anyone. And they jumped like everyone was mad. And like, no, but we refuse to design prisons. And that's, yeah, it's done. So you can sleep well while your project is not including accessibility for, people with special needs, like or.
To support this, remember this term. I don't know from who it was coined and who talked about this, but Google it. Criticality in architecture, not critical architecture. Criticality in architecture. It means that it's common sense. It makes sense with the economy, with the budget to design for most of the users. So for everyone, because you kind of take the group of people, you make a cut and you say like, this is 70% of these people are like this tall, this, and it makes sense to design for them. Criticality in architecture says like, even though it makes sense, what do we do with these 10% who will use it once a week? And this is the criticality in architecture. It's a very important term because it happens all the time. It happens to us. What he said about the budget, it always comes as the last thing because budgets, in the sense of the budget, when we do budget, if we sit down to buy something at grocery stores, we'll start thinking what three of us will eat first. And we're not going to buy for the one who just wants, not to promote any product, but just wants some chewing gums. I don't know. Very stupid. And we're like, no, I'm sorry, but you have to be part of the common, So how do we design? Yes, these are vulnerable people. That's like so we don't say like we have to treat them like they don't have legs and arms. I'm very sorry about this. But I'm honest with this, honestly. But we have to have more understanding. When we had another competition and they say like the ground floor, it's recommended to be for PMR, so to be inclusive for people in a wheelchair. We start basing our project on this. The housing was a social housing, and they said the ground floor is ideal for this with a ramp, and we're like, okay, we'll make this and we'll put this elevator. Then we did the calculations. It's like we contact the municipality, and they said like, well, it's not necessary because yes, we still don't satisfy the percentage of social housing, which should be 12%, but it's around 5 on an average level in Brussels. And they say like we need just more housing, and now we cannot now even to have but now we have to have also this kind of housing, and by the time we'll build these kind of things, and that's why that project ended up without accessible unit. So yeah, this criticality in architecture is something that we have to pay attention and should be tackled first. Wait a second, if they don't, yes, not as an afterthought, that should be prioritized. Like you go in the plane, those with babies first jump in. I don't know, like, but that's how it should be. Same with the budgets. Don't do it common. Common will do it for all, and we who are part of the common, if we are all good, we'll take it the hard way if it's needed. Live with that. Okay, I'll live for some time in a smaller place or whatever, but I have to understand I'm good, I'm healthy, I have everything on me. I can be happy with this. So that's the budget thing. It always comes. I mean, it always recurs.
Yeah. Before maybe going towards a more positive note to end, talking about solutions. So we've discussed 3 main groups here. Are there any other groups that are often overlooked in design of public space that we can shortly discuss here?
Plenty. I will just tell you quickly, like people who work extensively in trucks, for example, or in vans delivery. Pregnant women, people who were, I will say working class, but workers on the construction sites. You can go however you want. Older people, you can really. I mean, it can be for us as the same. It can be for everyone. Really, like babies. I mean, that's a good positive note. 2 years ago, there was a good, by the Bouwmeester of Brussels, there was a good entry of a text about making spaces more comfortable for babies. I mean, the smoke, that's hostile. The polluted space, the trucks coming by, the sirenas. I mean, you have like ambulance sirenas, which are going probably something to save, I don't know, but in a residential commons place, I mean, these are all can be, if you want to, birds, insects, that's all for them. Yeah, for them as well. I mean, you have the parks. That's where you have to be careful. One light in the park makes safe place for us, but it pushes away the animals.
Yeah, there is like an interesting phenomenon to spot these overlooked groups, kind of at nighttime. You will find people hanging around in different corners.
Yeah.
They create their own ambience, and who cares? And I want to chill here. Though it's sometimes they're very nicely. We have it in our neighborhood, like in the street. Very chill guys, I don't think they will feel themselves going to a square to be exposed, 15 years old. Sometimes they make a noise but it's very subtle. Like you don't even get bothered. And there, you easily can spot workers who after a job, like after construction, they go pick a staircase, they start drinking. Sometimes they get chased, unfortunately, but because they don't have a place where to hang. And I think they do it like those people, there is a problem, I see it quite often. Square where it's full with families, let's say, with kids. A lot of people don't feel comfortable to go there as a single or like youngster, not to be looked over, especially of the post-trauma in Belgium. So there they go to corners. They are not criminals. They can. It's an observation. I don't know if it's true or not. And they will be accused still, like, look what they are doing there in this hidden corner, like they are hiding around. And no, they might have done it based on conscious and out of respect, because different cultures, different whatever. And I don't want to be looked as looking at kids, for example. There is like a very tiny square, like lasting in the center, where there is a playground in the middle. And on both sides, there are like benches. Okay. And once we arrived with the kids, and then, they start playing. And there were 2 young guys, single. They were just kicked indirectly because families arrived. And they were looked at like, hey, just, make a space. And it felt very awkward. Like, no, it's like, it's for everyone, right? But sometimes it happens that they get excluded at the moment. This is kind of hostile architecture. Even people ourselves. Like, if you sit in a place where you see people around you, you don't feel comfortable, you start to do some sort of signs, or the cafe owners or something, they were kicked. And this is like a quick hostile architecture in a way. Yeah.
Yeah, I see what you mean, and that's also probably why or a lot of people don't notice or actively think about hostile architecture, because it serves them or a lot of people in a certain way. So, yeah, but let's talk solutions now. Let's talk about positive things. Are there any alternatives to hostile architecture, or real solutions that have maybe not an immediate impact, but at least an impact on the long term?
Look, I mean, the solutions, we already spoke about it, a little bit more research, a little bit more compassion about the people. For example, and as I said before, it's a city dynamic. Someone will feel excluded in that moment, what Mohammed was, someone will not. So it will happen. I think that it shouldn't happen to vulnerable groups, and also not to happen too often to unvulnerable groups. So I don't know if it was clear, but if the pattern goes in a trend, as a fashion, then it's a problem. Now, how to contain it? So yeah, we will have dynamics. A very good place, honestly, we're not thinking about the housing crisis. And I will go to the hostile architecture. It's strange to talk about solutions about hostile architecture, because that's, again, as I said, it's just the tip of the center. And what we're going to do if we just fix the tip of the center? Society should be more, and I think it's fine, in Brussels it's fine, but we should have, how to create policies. That's what I said. I'm always pro these city contract, neighborhood contracts. More of that. I'm not just saying more social housing and more, but quality units, to have more municipality or community built housing. It goes to housing to me. I don't know. It's just honestly because now I'm talking about the homeless. But if we have more of this and some kind of, how can I say, that's what we talked, you can solve, maybe you can offer some solutions on a quick way. For example, immediately the metro stations are very warm places, point. And they're covered, and we don't have much covered public spaces in Brussels. This can be used, this energy, there is an energy in the metro stations, heat, warmth, covered, that is not being used. It just goes away. I don't know, we can integrate some kind of living units or some kind of, recently I saw, now again about Rotterdam from this friend of ours, who they just try with the homeless to give them a new look. They do the haircut, and it's good to give them might not change anything, but give an alternative reflection of yourself, to stimulate some change and some understanding and these kind of things. But eventually, finally, I think that the housing, we should make more places where to fit these kind of places, or public restrooms, clean public restrooms. Why that will harm us? I mean, I don't see it, why we cannot get around this. Like in Brussels, we get about common things, and common thing is the public transport, and it's so on, but it's okay, And there is the canal should be clean, there is the air should be clean, and there should be public toilets, and there should be places where you can wash yourself and should be free. Now they employ this, the restaurants should open the doors, it's going very slowly, but yeah, this can change things, this on us, if you talk about the small, and public toilets shouldn't be in some corners. We would put them in the center of it's hygiene, for God's sake. It's very important. I mean, it's the one thing why cities keep developing is because we found way how to keep some hygiene level, cleanness. And now because we all have toilets home, that means immediately we don't have to have public restrooms. They have to be in Tokyo. The public restroom is designed. I'm not saying Tokyo is the best example in the world, far away from that. I'm talking about that they design the public toilets as a art piece that you're honored to go there. And not like here, it's in some corner and you put a coin in and you might find dirty or not. These kind of things. Shower places. I mean, what's the problem with that? Open these public institutions. We have the migration center, we have for mosques, you have churches. Those places are energy, unused energy that can be, I'm talking about the first step, invite them, host them, talk them. And it's a process. I mean, it will never be solved. But eventually here there should be another topic about housing crisis and policies and market, and is housing a market, and how long it is a market, and how we can... But yeah, there is a lot of existing energy that is not being used. It just stands like that.
So make more use of
Yes,
this
yes.
thing.
I mean,
makes
there
sense.
is no
Like
analysis, documentation of
Exactly.
this, you know.
Yeah, I think very important thing is before solution alternatives is to recognize the problem, to be honest about it, from both sides. Like I mean, especially politicians and private sector developers. Second thing is I think we lack of awareness. This like clearing the things they were not born like this, you know, or skaters. Like why do you like? Because some people maybe grow up listening from the parents or like whatever in the street. And they get like, oh, these are dangerous. And that's like the first to start, like to clean up the society heads and recognize the issue. Solving it as a like to stop building a hostile architecture is very simple. It's physical. It needs just awareness, political will again, debate. And it can be solved so easy. Of course, you need to mobilize the society to feel sympathy with them, and then I have it now, personal experience. My daughter, like 5 years old, we pass by homeless people on the street, and she says, "Wait, there's someone is sleeping in the street." Say, "Yeah, you know what? Like lost the house. He was burned." I tried to. Okay, it's very hard topic, but I'll not say, "Ooh, let's get away from here." That's the first reaction. Now she feels like next time we walked away, and then she took the apple. I'm not like joking. Give it to him. So this is the more. It's not. It will not stop there just to give them or charity. No, this is very important. Like throwing garbage in the street. Same. Like it comes with early ages, schools, and then on the professional levels, we never heard. Unfortunately, a competition for. We are calling the Baumeister. Start calling municipalities micro-scale interventions projects with competitions. Invite students, invite professionals, invite social workers, and you will get some very impressive results. There's plenty.
To add on this, on what he's saying also, like what he said, like why it's easy to be done, and support from government and municipal campaigning. I mean, look, we can do campaign. If one product wants you to sell something, they will make the best commercial and you will be convinced about it. How many people were not like happy with the vaccine and so on? You make a campaign, billboards here, there, you promote it, and people accept it. You explain a little bit, you educate. Have you ever seen this kind of strong campaign about some compassionable debate about the homeless? Have we ever seen Now, be honest with ourselves. Have we ever seen billboard, big ad with like care about the homeless? I'm now improvising. Now we have the Warmte Week, okay, that's like fine, but mostly you were associated with some car, right? Like some car is being sponsored. But have you ever seen something like, let's build community? Okay, but
because there is no physical capital regeneration. But we have to learn to invest in social capital.
But that's the thing that's why for those who are very practical mindset and who say like, but we have to invest into regeneration of the capital. Social sustainability for sure will give economical benefits. That's like, I mean, there are studies about this and there is no time for this, but for sure, I mean, if you have more people satisfied and you have less friction, business loves that. I mean, really, like if you have more groups satisfied, you might not get a lot of money from one group, but you will get for sure sporadical interventions, sporadical thinking, and then you get maybe not in the moment a lot of capital, but long-term stability and long-term capital. And I would go for that. I would go for that, and then at least we're going on the right direction and not just let's try a little bit here, a little bit there, and so yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So definitely a lot is possible to change short term, also long term, of course. We also hope we helped in part of raising more awareness on the topic.
Hopefully.
Of hostile architecture. I thank you, Mohammad and Filip,
Thank
for
you.
being our guests here of hostile architecture in the studio. Thanks for coming. I was your host, Corneel. Thank you, listeners, as well, for tuning into this episode. If you want to know more about the topic, you can read our further articles on the Project B website, and there will also be more information on our socials. Thank you so much, and see you next time. Bye.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Et c'est Bruxelles, le monde appelle. C'est pas New York, c'est pas Anvers, c'est pas Paris, c'est pas pareil, Bruxelles ici.